You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
From the ponds to the pros, it's time for Beyond the Pond on The Fan. Here are your hosts, Pat Micheletti and Kevin Fallness.
Let's talk hockey!
Week 2 of Beyond the Pond, and already, Pat Micheletti, nowhere to be found. He's not in the KFAN studios, I know that, but that's because he's doing his A job. He's traveling with the Golden Gophers. He's out there in Columbus, Ohio. Patrick, good morning, and welcome to your own show.
Good morning, Kevin. Unfortunately, we're on the road this week, but home next week, Kevin. So
then we'll lock eyes once again Saturday morning, 10 a.m. No, that's not true. We'll get into it more as the show goes along, but I'm going to be on the road next week.
You told me.
But that'll be fun. Not fun. Last night, your Golden Gophers at Ohio State taking on the Buckeyes, and they took one on the chin, 5-1. Before we go to Steve Miller, associate head coach there for the Golden Gophers, give me your bird's eye view of what you saw.
Boy, a lot to dissect there. Gophers had a 5-minute major when they were down 2-0. Excuse me, and they were unable to capitalize on that. In fact, took a penalty, and then the Gophers in the third period took a 5-minute major themselves, and Ohio State capitalized twice on that, and that was pretty much it. They, in my opinion, I thought they had a really good second period, and just couldn't score. But you give a lot of credit to Ohio State, their goaltender. They played well, and it's one of those games, Kevin, where you're in the middle of February, if you're talking the National Hockey League, and game 63 or whatever, where you have one of those nights. And last night was one of those nights for Minnesota.
All right, that was your view of it. Behind the bench, Steve Miller, associate head coach for the Golden Gophers, joins us now also in Columbus. I'll let you judge. How did Patrick do in his recap of last night's 5-1 loss, Steve?
No, he's always spot on. He always does a great job. And obviously, I could add a few more points to it. So, it all starts with our D-zone funnels and how we come back into the zone and how connected we are. And we were disconnected last night. Our funnels were poor. It put guys against the wall, away from the puck. And when we're not connected as a 5-man group, then it's a coin flip. And then you put on top of that chances to get pucks deep below the goal line, force their D to turn. We didn't do that. We turned over too many pucks. We were disconnected. And they were on their toes, and, unfortunately, we were on our heels most of the night. And they're a very good hockey team. They've won a lot of games. They play hard. They play connected. And they kind of punched us in the nose last night. And we tried to, get a response, but it was too inconsistent throughout the 60.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was talking to you before the game. I said, what problems does Ohio State pose for you tonight? And to a T of, we have to do this, we have to do this, and we have to do this. And and as you just stated, you didn't do those things last night, and you come away with a loss. But that being said, as Coach Motzko said after the game last night, the great thing is we get to play tonight.
You got that right. And one thing that has been very consistent for us has been our funnels. And last night it wasn't there. And if we get disconnected in our own D zone, it just makes it harder to come out as a group of three, group of four, and then you're playing defense. And they possess pucks, they cut back, they don't force pucks to the middle. They want to spend 30 seconds making you play defense. And again, their D are involved. They're very patient offensively. If we don't have good funnels and we're not in the right spots defensively, it's going to be a long night.
You mentioned the fact that it was like a punch in the nose. You're out of the holiday break now. Everybody's back in the lineup, and you're back to full strength. Was this a nice? You hate to suffer a loss at any point in time, but you got it out of the way. That punch in the nose, is that the nice little wake up call that you got, and maybe they'll respond tonight and going forward?
Well, I mean, that's always as a coach, that's to show you, hey, we're going to respond tonight. We just got punched in the nose. Obviously, that in a perfect world, yes, that's what we do tonight. Correct. And we got a little meeting with the guys here coming up shortly, show them some clips, and then be ready for tonight.
All right, let's move on to something that I think is just unbelievable. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been a part of 8 U.S. junior teams. Is that correct?
It's 8. I think if you count Red Deer, because Red Deer got canceled, 9. But yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Okay, all right, 8, 9, whatever.
Yep.
And you have gotten the medal 6 times. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's crazy.
It is absolutely insane. And and I'm gonna I think you should be the head coach of that team next year when it comes to Minnesota. I am actively
I hear you.
Promoting that.
Good sergeant. I'm a sergeant. I'm a good sergeant.
But nonetheless, that's just me. But that being said, you win back-to-back medals, which is really, really hard to do. And you had a few of the guys, I don't know what the count was, back from last year's team. But this year's team was a little bit different than the team a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, someone asked me about it yesterday, that Ohio State guy started talking about World Juniors, and I said, I don't think we have a half hour to talk about it on the air and stuff like that. But, so many thoughts come into your mind. I mean, obviously, it all starts with Jimmy Johansson, his vision for what this program would become, his tragic passing, John Van Beesbroek stepping into that to fill a role that was, to step into some big shoes, and how he's carried the torch and pushed it forward. The support staff with the trainers, the equipment guys, the whole vision. I mean, and then you get down to, the staff, and we have great support from, Jessica Thibault, who works at Notre Dame, she's kind of in charge of everything. And then David Carl's leadership. And then the coaches I've been fortunate to work with, whether it be Scott Sandel, and obviously me and Coach Bob did this for 2 years together, winning that one in Montreal, and then we won the bronze the next year in Buffalo. Nate Lehman. I mean, it's been an unreal to see it all these last 8 years, and how it's become and where we are, and then for us to have an opportunity to go back to back and do it in Canada, and do it with coming behind against, I think, arguably one of the top and hardest teams to beat in the tournament, because they always get better. We play them in the exhibition. They're kind of laying in the weeds. They got guys on their second power play unit that won't be on their second power play unit in the tournament, and they're kind of a slow build in the tournament, just like we were this year. Up, slow build up, and you have to come back against them. And what an unbelievable accomplishment for our country, for USA Hockey, and just so feel fortunate to be part of a staff. And obviously, you got Larson there, Coach Lasan, Rabs, Travis Culhane from Denver as well. I hate naming names because you always forget somebody, but I am a lucky man.
Take us inside the building in Ottawa for this one. I'd have to assume last year was just bonkers. Beating Sweden on their ice had to be awesome, but to do it on back-to-back occasions, like you say, and get it done in Ottawa against a very good Finnish team, how cool was that inside the building as that game transpired?
I thought we would be more. It was unreal. I mean, the people of Ottawa came to the games. We had great atmospheres for the games. I thought we would be looked at as more the villain, but we weren't in that game. Obviously, Ryan Leonard was the villain for all the fans, so they kind of gave him a hard time every time he touched the puck. But the fans were it was kind of torn. I thought it was. I thought it would be 100% the building. Besides our fans, our group of great fans that traveled to support us. So the environment was cool just to have all the fans in the building. I thought it'd be a little bit more angry at us. At least that's, maybe, sometimes as a coach, you just zone everything out. You're like, did they play music in between songs? You're in such a locked in sense of the game that maybe I didn't hear the boos. I thought it was a great place to play. I felt that, it was a coin flip for the fans who they wanted to cheer for. But what a finish. What an unbelievable play by Z Boom. to make that play, the Teddy Stiga, who corralled that puck and made a great move to, the man, the myth, the legend. There you go, Teddy Stiga.
You know what blows me away, Coach, is, I know you guys have a camp in the summer and evaluate and start, selecting your team, but then everyone goes back to their college team or junior team or wherever they're playing, and then you get them all back together, and you have so little time to, put your systems in, become a team, all that. How difficult is that, as a coaching staff to really reel in?
I think the big thing is you just got to pick three things to be really good at. Like David's first and foremost thing is the funnel, and then puck management, and then every coach that I've played with or work with is like no stupid penalties. And it took us, we had to work through some kinks on that, you know what I mean? And by the time the last three medal games, I think we killed one in the goal, had to kill one in the gold. And unfortunately, they made a play against us on the rush. I think we had two against the Czechs or three against the Swiss. You know what I mean? And we said going into those games, it's going to be two. It's got to be two. You know what I mean? So we challenged the guys in that regard. You cannot take penalties in this tournament. Canada led the tournament in penalties with 113 minutes. You can't win this tournament taking penalties, especially bad penalties. The players are too good. The power plays are too good. So you really focus on, the three things as a coach that you want to do well. And then you start, that's your message every practice and how you build the team. You know what I mean? How you train them. And then you got to get the guys in the right spots and then hopefully put them in a position where their God-given ability, talent, and instincts take over when need be.
Talking to Steve Miller, associate head coach for the Golden Gophers, on the ice tonight at 5:30. You can hear that in the Twin Cities with Wally and Pat Micheletti on, I think, starting at 5 o'clock with their pregame on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130 and FM 103.5. I know you got to get going, but I got to ask you, as a guy that was in charge of the defensemen, and you already mentioned him, and of course you had a wonderful setup for the game winner in talking about Zeev Buyum. Team USA, DU Pioneer, and a Wild prospect. What did you see from this young man in your time watching him close up and personal up there in Ottawa?
Well, like the 2 years we spent together, his passion for the game, his competitiveness is like, it's through the roof. Like, he is engaged. He wants to win. He wears it on his sleeve. And then you take his skill set and his ability to break players down one-on-one. It's special to watch, but it always starts with your passion and your work and your compete. And if you put those three as your building blocks for your game, then great things are going to happen. And then on top of that is his skill level, his sense, his feel, how to play offensively in the O zone, whether it be leading a rush in the neutral zone or 5-on-5 play or the power play. It's the Wild, they got a great one. They got a great one, that's for sure.
You got one more, Patrick?
No, I'm good.
All
We're
right.
going to let him go and get to the meetings and get ready for tonight.
Get going there, Steve. Good luck, and thanks for joining us here this morning on Beyond the Pond.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it. And let's go. Let's go tonight.
There he is, Steve Miller, associate head coach for the Golden Gophers. Like you said, Patrick, and like he said, the Gophers got punched in the nose last night. Still a glossy record. Despite the loss, 17-4-2 overall, 8-2-1 in the Big Ten, and an opportunity at redemption tonight in the rematch. 5:30, the puck drops from Columbus, Ohio. I didn't even see the game on TV. I listened to a lot of it with you and Wally as I was in my car, and it sounded like a pretty raucous atmosphere for a game that was basically in the middle of the day. They moved it up 2 hours because of the football game, eh?
I was actually surprised at the attendance last night. I thought there would be no one in the building, with the football game 2 hours later, the people in Columbus, they love their football. And, but you know what? It was a pretty good crowd. And obviously, the fans there for Ohio State left the game pretty happy.
I bet they did. Yeah, 5-1 was the final. Let's take a break. That's Pat Micheletti. He's out there in Columbus, Ohio. We'll get back with him here in a second. We got Brett Blakemore and his breakaways coming up here in the next 20 minutes or so as well. Later on in the show, top of the hour, we're going to go to San Jose. We'll check in with Joe O'Donnell, the voice of the Minnesota Wild. Wild also got punched in the nose the other night by the mighty Colorado Avalanche. Still had won four in a row prior to that. Started out 2025 on a wonderful note. It came to a crashing halt Thursday against the Avalanche. We'll talk to Joe O'Donnell and get the scene out there if we're going to get any healthy bodies tonight back at the tank. Maybe Jakub Lauko. I think that's about it, but maybe he's got some other ideas. We're also going to check in with Tony Scott. Some of you probably know that name from Youth Hockey Hub, an opportunity to talk about youth hockey, high school and lower, and he's got all the ins and outs, and he's got some great talking points that we'll get to. We'll try to make that a weekly contribution because, the youth hockey here, we are the state of hockey after all. It's not just about the National Hockey League, not just about the college game, but Tony can get us in the ins and outs of everything going on in youth hockey as well from Youth Hockey Hub and lots more. We're giving away tickets today as well. 64686 and Brett, I think today might be the day that we break out the talkback. I've never used it. Abbott is bothering me on a weekly basis that we got to use it more. What do you think about using the talkback to give away some tickets today?
I'm ready, willing, and able to do it.
All right, so I'm going to try to explain it. Go to the free iHeartRadio app.
Yes,
there's a microphone, a new and improved iHeartRadio app. Use that little talkback button, the microphone next to the play button, and you can leave up to a 30-second message that we can play on the air. Talk about the Minnesota Wild, talk about the Gophers, whatever your hot take is. At some point, we're going to give away 2 or 3 sets of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers Wednesday in St. Paul. Should be a fun night at XL Energy Center, and you can get your tickets at wild.com/tickets. But we'll be doing that throughout the course of the program, so get your talkbacks in, text in your questions, and here's another one, and I'll put this to Pat. No, in fact, this will be my cliffhanger. I've got something I want to throw out there that we'll do after the break, right here on Beyond the Pond.
This is Kevin Gorg, and I'll give you hundreds of reasons to listen to Micheletti.
Whoa.
Good, hundreds. It's Beyond the Pond on the Fan.
Wild Sharks tonight at 9 on the audio home for Wild Hockey. FM 100.3 KFAN, The Fan.
Wild are hot. They're going to stay hot. And I think this year is different. I think I just have a good feeling about this year. Go Wild.
Oh, man, could you get me out of the doghouse with some Wild tickets?
That's great. Would love some contributions, not just say, hey, give me tickets. Just get in on those talkbacks, though. They're continuing to filter in. Brett will get them to us. And if you can be so kind, leave your phone number as well, because if it is a good one and I want to give you those tickets, that's the easiest way to transfer those tickets to you to see the Wild and Oilers in St. Paul midweek when they return home after this 2-game trip out west. The Wild are on the road, so too is Pat Micheletti with those Golden Gophers. How is Columbus, Ohio this time of year?
Before we get going, Kevin,
okay,
I want to ask you, were you the person that selected the person who won the tickets last week?
I was.
And can you tell the people the message that won it for that gentleman? I
didn't even realize it, but yeah, he said something like, "I'd rather be here anyhow."
Directed towards you, right?
Yeah. So you're right. Maybe I had some preference because it was about me, but that wasn't on purpose. It was a random nature out of the folks that got their stuff on the air. I picked one, and that's the one I guess that jumped out at me.
But he's kind of ripping you, though, isn't he?
Why?
No,
he's using your bit.
No, that's
or
imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
All right,
I'm all right with that. I was in Hastings this morning, Patrick. I'm sure you saw that on the Twitter machine.
I saw the picture, and And right away I thought, oh, boy, is he going to make it? What time did you get to the station today?
I was here. I was actually early. I caught the end of Trent Tucker and Dave Sinekin, and I was on the edge of my seat. They were talking all about the Packers and the Timberwolves. It was fascinating stuff. But I was here on time. There was very little hockey. The only hockey talk those guys will do is off the air, and that's where Trent Tucker, he loves it. He loves talking that hockey.
Right.
But we were there. You know what? I drove 4 boys to Hastings this morning, left my house at 5:15. Got them there for a 6:30 puck drop, went to a coffee shop, had a coffee, and killed an hour, and they went out there and they beat Duluth East 6-2. So
nice.
It was a good morning.
That's very impressive, by the way, to get up that early and take the boys out to the rink, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's funny because I was driving and I'm having flashbacks of my own youth, and I know that's what we're doing here. We're making memories as we're driving to these rinks, but it's cold as hell. The snow is kind of flying sporadically. No problems with the roads at all, but those are the moments that you remember. I flash back to my own youth, so it's kind of neat how things come full circle.
Yeah, there's nothing better, Kevin. Nothing better.
So, like I said, how is Columbus, Ohio this time of year?
Well, we got some snow last night, and so which is a little bit different than normally when we come to Columbus. But so they got dumped on a little bit, and they're all excited about their Columbus Blue Jackets, who are playing a lot better.
Yeah.
And Dean Evison has done a pretty darn good job here with this team. And so, you have the Buckeyes in football and obviously their hockey team, which is in 3rd place right now, a point behind the Gophers, Kevin. And, if they win tonight, they will leapfrog the Gophers and go into 2nd place and potentially 1st place if Michigan State loses tonight. So it's going to be another tough one tonight.
Is it a surprise to see the Buckeyes right there towards the top of the standings? Everyone talked about the Gophers, Michigan State coming into this year, but I didn't hear many people talk about Ohio State. Is their rise in the standings at all of a surprise to those that are in the know?
Not to me, but to a lot of other people, because they were picked to finish dead last in the conference this year. And, they lost a few pretty good players, but Steve Rollick, a Hill Murray grad, has done a terrific job, replenishing his lineup every year. And they typically start out slow. And, hey, last year they didn't win. They lost their first 9 conference games and finished the season really strong and ended up beating Wisconsin in the first round of the playoffs a year ago. So he does something right here. And they play hard. They may not have the flashiest names that you know of in the conference, but, they come to play every night.
That's what's going on with the Golden Gophers. Not much better to report with the Minnesota Wild, as I mentioned going into the break. They got punched in the face too on Thursday night. 6-1 was the final. That Colorado Avalanche, their demise has been greatly exaggerated. That is still a very good team, Pat. And now that they've got goaltending to go with it, which I think they do, I think Blackwood is a very good goaltender compared to Georgiev and anything else they've had in the past. I think that's a team to watch out for. What do you think?
Anytime you have Ranton and McCarr and McKinnon, you're in every game. And yes, they had goaltending problems, they had injury problems, and other things. But Nathan McKinnon is one of those guys that he won a cup. It took him 9 years or 8 years to finally win a cup. And once you get a taste of it, I think he's matured as a player, and his mindset is to win, and he infuses that throughout his whole team. And I don't know obviously where they're going to finish this year, but they're going to be an awfully tough out again.
Yeah, I mean, the knock against them is they lack depth. Well, I mean, when you've got McCarr, McKinnon, and Rantanen, depth be damned. I mean, that is such a good team that those three can carry them. As long as those three stay healthy, there's no reason to think that they can't be one of the teams to beat in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I think they went through some I don't know, mental pains, if you will, when Landeskog went out, who was the heart and soul and the captain of their team, and he hasn't been able to come back from that knee injury that he has, or quad, or whatever it is, Kevin. And so I think it took them a while because it was kind of a changing of the guard for leadership there, and but what. You see what McCarr and McKinnon and Rantanen do every night, and you're 100% correct. They're a threat to any team in the league.
It really wasn't a fair fight on Thursday, and you can't use that as an excuse because you got to play with the hands that's dealt you. But man, when you're missing Kirill Kaprizov first and foremost, and then you're missing not one, not two, but your top three defensemen in the organization are unavailable. I mean, you're going into it, you brought a knife to a gunfight, and it really wasn't fair. And in the end, it played out like that. The injury situation for this team, man, I don't know what they need to do. Lucky rabbit's foot or something, but man, they are snake bit right now.
Have you ever seen anything like it?
No, I mean, they went through it a little bit last year.
It's mind blowing that, you lose your top three defensemen, you lose a top five forward in the whole National Hockey League, not in your lineup. I mean, listen, they're still playing hard, and they're not making excuses, but boy, comes a point in time where you just gotta, you shake your head and say, what do we have to do? You understand injuries are part of the game, and they do happen to every team. But I haven't seen it where, your top four guys are out of the lineup.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then to go up against a very good Colorado Avalanche team, it didn't go well for Minnesota. We'll see what happens tonight. The team will take the ice here in a couple of hours for their morning skate. Joe O'Donnell is there, and we'll grab him at the top of the hour to see if, according to Russo and what he tweeted out, none of the main guys traveled with the team. That being Jared Spurgeon, of course, he's out week to week, but no Jonas Brodin, no Brock Faber, no Kirill Kaprizov. So you already know you're going to be without those four guys. The only guy that I think would be a little bit of a question mark is Jakub Lauko. But the good thing is you're playing against a Sharks team tonight that's not very good. They've had a couple of good wins over the last week, but in the end of it all, they're dead last in the Western Conference. And then you take on a very good Vegas Golden Knights team tomorrow night at T-Mobile Arena. So they've got their work cut out for them in the next 48 hours, but hopefully they can figure out a way to get that taste out of their mouth from Thursday night, because that was unpleasant for everyone involved.
It's a challenge. I mean, these two games are going to be a challenge. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Now, Coach Hines put in some type of system that will, give them a chance in each of these two games. Kevin, on any particular night in the National Hockey League, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? And right, San Jose is a rebuilding team. They have a superstar in the making in Celebrini. But let's face it, they're not a great team right now, but you know what? Things have evened out tonight, right? And so it's going to be another tough game, and hopefully the Wild can get some points before they head to Vegas.
You ready for some breakaways?
I'm always ready for breakaways, especially with the great Brett.
It's nice that he's feeling better. I got to see the whites of his eyes. He's not all bloodshot and ill.
He was a little short with me on the phone. I don't know if he's, maybe he's back.
Maybe he's crabby. He's healthy, but he might still be crabby. He knows that his.
I think he's nervous about his quarterback in the first playoff.
As I should be.
He told me he's getting ready for tomorrow's final Packer preview of the season, which tells me he doesn't think they're making it out of the weekend.
Boy, that's pretty negative, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can bring some positivity back into him.
What would Cinny say to that there, Brett?
He'd say, probably agree with you. It's probably what he'd say.
All right, Patrick, we're going to take a break, and then we'll do some Brett Blakemore breakaways. All right. Pat Micheletti out there in Columbus, Ohio. Brett Blakemore's back here. We got his breakaways coming up. This is what I was going to tease you with going into the break. First of all, we want your talkbacks, because a good one will get you a pair of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers in St. Paul on Wednesday.
And I've got plenty to choose from already.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Are they taking shots? They're not ripping me, are they?
No, they're kissing your ass.
Ooh, I like those. Those are some of my favorites. So continue to bring in those talkbacks. This is what I wanted, 64686. I've been exchanging text messages with a certain former Wild player going back about 15 years. Can you guess who it is? It's a significant name, I think. And he wouldn't come on this week. I'm going to get him in the next couple of weeks. Go ahead and take a shot at who you think it is at 64686. Brett took a couple of guesses. He was wrong. Can anyone guess which former Wild player I'm exchanging text messages with? I'm excited about it. I don't know if I'll tell you who it is, but you can certainly guess. Do that at 64686. We'll give away a random pair of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers on Wednesday night to that as well. Brett Blakemore's breakaways after the break. You're listening to Beyond the Pond.
This is Wild Captain Jared Spurgeon, and you're listening to Fallness and Micheletti on Beyond the Pond.
For more, the 651 Carpets Plus, home of the Next Day Install Studios, on the Fan.
Hey, Pat, Marcus from Oak Grove. The Wild going to make the playoffs, win the Stanley Cup, Kirill the Thrill. We're going to go. It's going to happen. I mean, what can they not do right now? No backs against the wall. It's going to happen. Let's go.
Hey, Kevin and Brett Blakemore. This is Max in River Falls. Get that guy out of the doghouse. Give him the tickets. Come on.
Oh, that's fun. I've never used the talkback, so it's kind of fun to see these pour in. I've also had folks line up on the 64686, Patrick, and they're taking some guesses. I've had one person guess. I'll just tell you that this is the only hint I'll give you. Again, this player played here probably 15 years ago, and I haven't talked to him since he left the organization. That's another clue. Doesn't work for the organization at this point. Do you care to take a guess? I've had many guesses. Only one person has got it right thus far.
Philip Kuba.
That's actually a good one. You know, I think the guys ran into him in Florida during a trip. Actually, it might have been last year. But no.
Yeah.
Philip Kuba is not correct. This one was a little more recent. Like I said, within about the last 15 years. I have not talked to him since he left, other than the text exchange we had last night, and almost talked him into it, but we're going to shoot for next weekend, and it'll be fun. So if you want, you can continue to guess. The person who guessed that right, I've already given a pair of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers Wednesday in St. Paul. Yes. And if you want to go, Patrick, you can get off your wallet and dial up wild.com/tickets. We'd love to see you at XL Energy Center.
Hey, Kevin, the talk, the people are positive.
Yes.
About this Wild team.
Yes.
Which is nice to see. Usually we hear, they're going to do the same thing. I like the positivity out of the fans.
It's hard to be negative about this team, though, Patrick. I don't know how you feel after the first half of the season that they put together, despite the folks that have been in and out of this lineup. They've cobbled themselves together a pretty good setup, and they've given themselves a quote-unquote cushion going into the second half. And a lot of that will help them get through this injury spat that they're dealing with, which is a good thing because they're going to need it. I don't know how the next half of the season is going to go, but they got to get some of these guys back. They need a Brock Faber. They need a Jonas Brodin. They need a Kirill Kaprizov. If this team wants to do anything in the second half, they got to get these guys back. And hopefully that starts maybe Lauko tonight and maybe some other guys as they get back on home ice starting Wednesday and beyond.
Right, you can't control injuries, Kevin, and you know what how anyone expects them to win with these guys out is is not being very fair in my opinion. But that being said, Kevin, to me, it all starts at the top. And, we talked about it last weekend. But, with your leadership from Bill Guerin down to, Matt Maka to John Hines and his staff, and then everyone buying into it. And when you have that sort of, I hate to use the word, but culture around your team, then good things are going to happen. And, you look at other teams and you look at where they're at and you shake your head because you say, with all that talent, this team is, this whatever team you're talking about, is playing well. Well, there's a reason for it. And so to me, it all starts at the top and it filters on down to the players. And, it's been a very impressive first half. Are we at the halfway point?
Yeah, we just passed it. 42 games under our belt out of 82. Yep. So they just passed the halfway mark.
So, you have to be nothing but impressed.
It has been impressive. I don't know if Brett Blakemore's breakaways will be impressive, but let's find out.
Are they ever?
It's time for Brett Blakemore's breakaway.
Here's a break. Are they ever, he says.
Nobody can catch him. Kaprizov, score!
And now, Blakemore's breakaways.
A tough crowd today. Man.
You shouldn't be crabby with him then.
That open, I wasn't crabby. I got things to do. I got to put them on hold. Got people to call.
What were you going to say about the Open? You like it?
Open's one of the best.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Oh, it's fantastic. Let's go here. I do hate when you guys snipe my breakaways, though, although obviously it's the A topic. Kaprizov, Faber, Brodin all didn't make the trip out west, so I'll ask this, take this spin on it. I'm assuming everyone's going to have the same answer, but we'll see. If you could wave your magic wand and magically heal one of the players that I just named and magically fly them out to Cali to the Shark Tank to play tonight, which one would it be?
Patrick, I'll go first. If I could have my wish, I want them all back, and they're all equally important to this team, but this is a real mortal team without Kirill Kaprizov. He's a game changer. He's a game breaker. And like Patrick said, and it's hard to argue, he's one of the best 5 players in the entire world. I would love to have Kirill Kaprizov back on this roster ASAP, considering the lightning hot start that he had to this season. How about you, Patrick?
Well, obvious answer, right? But I'm going to go a different route. Just because when you have your top 3 defensemen out, you get out of the zone by having good defensemen make passes and have that ability to get the puck out of your zone into the offensive zone and feed your forwards. And right now, when your top 3 are out, that's going to be pretty difficult to do. So I'm going to say, pick one of the 3, Faber, Spurgeon, Brodin. One of them, please come back sooner than later, for me, because.
What's your answer, Brett?
Well, the answer we were looking for was Kirill Kaprizov. You are correct. The guy is a Hart Trophy favorite, odds on in Vegas. You could go right now. He's got some of the best odds to win the Hart. Those guys don't just grow on trees. And I actually do. I don't think Pat is crazy. I think there is something to that, having your top 3 D out.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, just for now. But to me, it's Kaprizov, and it's not close.
Before you go to the next breakaway, Pat, you played the game on a very high level. Declan Chisholm has been one of the great finds for the Minnesota Wild since.
Stop sniping my breakaways.
Oh, okay. Well, then I won't. Then go ahead.
We'll go here. Declan Chisholm. I like Declan Chisholm a lot, but he did have a pretty colossal mistake, and that didn't cost the game. It didn't, I'm not going to rip him. It didn't help. It didn't help, but I'm not going to throw him under the bus because I like the way he plays. I like his puck-moving abilities. But my question to go off of that is, what was the worst screw-up / mistake you've ever seen in the game of hockey? Is that up there?
First of all, Patrick, for you, we were on the same wavelength there. The play that he's talking about, Declan Chisholm tried to send a breakout pass to Matt Zuccarello, and the puck just fluttered off his stick. He fanned on the pass. Instead, it's right there on the doorstep for Colton. He's able to deposit it, and it comes in the 6-1 beatdown of the Wild. It was just one of those nights, and Tom talked about it in the broadcast. It happens to everyone, especially you play this game at a high level. Those things are going to happen. Anything like that ever happen to you?
To me personally?
Sure.
Of course not.
Why would it?
No.
Why would it, Kevin?
No.
No, well, I'm a forward, too. I was a forward, not, you see it happen more with defensemen, hence why I want one of our top 3 defensemen back. So they can complete a pass like that. But no, it does happen, right? And to answer a question that you tried to ask before Brett interjected, if you recall, I think it wasn't the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it could have been. It was a playoff run. Remember when Steve Smith, the defenseman for Edmonton,
banked it off of Grant Fuhr, right?
Yeah, put in his own net. I think it cost him the game.
Yeah, that
happens.
Yeah, that's awful. The one that came to mind for me right off the bat was a guy that used to be a lightning rod, not quite on that stage that you're talking about in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but Marian Gaborik having the best night of his life. 5 goals scored. He was just on fire. And Martin Skula against the Rangers, December 2007. And Martin Skula blew a tire and set it up a pizza right in front of whoever the goaltender was that night for the Wild. Spoils the shutout. It was the one dark cloud over just this magical night for Marian Gaborik. And again, when I talk about a guy who was a lightning rod for Minnesota Wild fans back in the day, Martin Skula was one of those guys for sure.
Have you been texting with him?
I've got one more for you, Kevin. And
Skula's not the answer.
Does involve a Micheletti. My brother Joe. It was the year where they didn't have divisions. It was 1 through 16 made the playoffs, right? And God, there may have been 16 teams in the league then. But they were playing the New York Islanders, and they were going for the President's Trophy. They were like a point or 2 points behind them. And the Blues were playing the Islanders, and my brother Joe was on the power play and at the left point, and his skate hit a rut.
Oh, no.
And he fell, and a breakaway ensued. The Islanders scored. The Islanders win the game. The Islanders end up finishing first overall in the National Hockey League that year. The Blues had a team, and, but that happens.
Will you bring up that story next time we have Joe on the air?
Joe's not coming on the air this year.
Why not? You got to be kidding me.
Because of you, because you'll bring it up.
No.
And I'm not going to take that chance.
I will promise you, I will not bring it up.
Yeah, and I believe you, right?
I promise. We have to have a Joe Micheletti sighting here in the next few weeks. I don't know what the schedule looks like, and he's as busy as you are.
Maybe. I lost his number, but maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, we will.
You know what the biggest screw up to me? I obviously wasn't there, but you remember the Patrick Stefan moment?
No.
2007, empty net. He had an empty net, and he missed the empty net from like 2 feet away, blew a tire. Oilers come back the other way with like 10 seconds to go and score to tie it.
I do remember that.
Yeah, so there's... He's either, to tie it. So that, to me, was one that stood out. Let's go here. Speaking of defensemen, what is your grade on Juracek's debut for the Minnesota Wild?
Man, I'll tell you, it's hard to judge anything from Thursday night. I mean, that just got out of control in a real big hurry. I don't even think he took a shot, and that's his calling card. He's got a monster bomb from the blue line, is what I've been told. I didn't see it that night. You did notice his physical presence. He's a big body, and he takes up a lot of space. But I don't know. I'd like to see a couple more games from him. Did you take anything from Juracek's debut, Patrick?
All I can say is I would hate to judge after one game. Mm-hmm. Let him get his feet wet. Let him get acclimated with the team. Judge the trade 5 years from now. And, he's a young kid. He's 21. He's a number 1 draft pick. You got to give him time. So, no, I have no opinion one way or the other.
All I'll say is that last week a breakaway was, when are we going to see Juracek? Flash forward a week later, he's playing for the Wild. Just saying. Well, just saying.
Yeah, they'll take any healthy button. Tom Reed almost put his skates on Thursday. They were so shorthanded. But, it's hard to judge on that one. Go ahead with your next breakaway.
I'm going to take the Peacock opportunity when I can. The loss against the Avs, I get we're willing to write off almost all of it. But how much concern do you have that it is another loss against a Western Conference playoff team? I get this one in particular is a different circumstance, but that to me, if you gun to my head, find something to nitpick the Wild about, that's it, is that they're not beating those teams consistently enough.
Brett,
What's your concern on that?
Let me ask you this, Brett, okay? What significance does it have?
A lot of significance.
In what sense?
This Avs game in particular, or the record?
In any of the three that you mentioned, what significance does it have in the regular season?
In the regular season specifically?
Are you that they're going to lose?
I'm just saying, how concerned are you, Pat? Playoffs? I think it absolutely can matter in the playoffs. If they can't beat those teams, if they can't match up firepower, sure, it could matter. I'm a little concerned about it. I'm not ready to throw in the towel, but it's a little let's start beating these teams a little bit. That's all.
I think it gets overblown a little bit, but
those are the teams you're playing, Pat.
Completely different game in the playoffs, and a lot of things can change from now until the playoffs start, and a lot of it is, in my opinion, is how are you playing at when the playoffs begin? Are you trending up? Are you trending down? Is your goaltending good? Is your specialty teams good? That can all change. So to me, for those reasons alone, I don't put a lot into it.
I don't know that I do either, and I especially don't take much out of Thursday. If they go into the playoffs with that lineup, they're not going to do anything in the playoffs.
I don't care who they're playing,
and that's all apologies to everyone in that lineup.
All right, now let me throw this at you.
Okay.
The night before the Wild played Colorado, who did they play?
The Wild,
one of the worst teams in the league.
Oh, Chicago, the Avalanche,
right?
And they fell 3-1 at the United Center.
We as Colorado fans say, throw up the white flag. We're done. How can this team, it's one game in an 82-game season, and whether it's 4 games in a 82-game season, completely different mindset when playoffs start.
One more, Brett.
One more. Can Team USA do the three-peat in the state of hockey next year? Let's go.
I don't see why not, Patrick. I mean, we already knew they were a world power regardless, but the opportunity to do it now in St. Paul with the tournament, the World Juniors coming to Minnesota, I don't know why they wouldn't be the favorite going in, right?
Well, I don't know, because, you're going to have a whole new group of guys, basically, probably some returners, but what USA Hockey has done has been amazing in their development of players. The pool selection is so big right now, and there's so many good players. Of course, they're going to be, considered top 3 for sure. But, we don't know what the other countries are bringing and, things of that nature. But sure, on our own soil, in our great state, it's going to be a blast.
And David Carl already said that he's not coaching it next year, right? That's why you're championing Steve Miller to be the next American head coach there for Team USA?
He's probably one of the most underrated, what word am I looking for?
Under the radar type of guy. Yeah. He's not a guy that craves the spotlight, and he just does his job, and he does it effectively.
Right.
Just ask Bob Motzko, ask Dave Carl.
I tell you what he does with the penalty kill and and his defensemen. It's amazing. He's a fabulous coach, and I don't know if they'll consider him to have the pedigree, the high profile name to get that job. But if I'm running Team USA, he's certainly getting consideration.
Ron from Golden Valley, Saul and Blaine, both losing all credibility here at 64686, both siding with Brett Blakemore. He highlighted it, Patrick, so I would see that someone was on his side.
Well, at least he's got two.
All right, we'll take a break.
We're winning the Stanley Cup. Oh, here we go.
That is we do need to bring that negatrometer, whatever he calls it.
He still wants to trade Foligno, though.
Yes, he does. He doesn't like Trenyon. Yeah. He thinks everything is working against Minnesota and the state of hockey.
To get 40 goals, right?
That's it. That's Pat Micheletti out there in Columbus. We'll set him on hold. We'll get him back on the line. And when we continue with hour number 2, we're going to the Shark Tank. We're going to swim with Joe. We won't swim with him. We'll just put him on the phone, and we'll talk a little Wild and Sharks next on Beyond the Pond. Hour 2 of Beyond the Pond, back on the air here on KFAN. Pat Micheletti out there in Columbus, Ohio. Now out in San Jose, we check in with the voice of the Minnesota Wild right here on FM 100.3 The Fan. His name is Joe O'Donnell. Joe, that's Pat Micheletti in Columbus. I'm Kevin Fallness back here in St. Louis Park. How are things out there in balmy and sunny Southern California?
Well, it's nice to meet both of you. Thanks for having me on.
Happy New Year, Joe.
What's up, Pat? How you doing? Kevin, everything's great out here, man. You're right. The sun is out. That's always a nice change of pace when you're on the road this time of year.
I know Southern California is under siege. And obviously the Vikings game is affected by that. And more importantly than that, the people that are going through all this travesty out there. Any problems in San Jose? It doesn't sound like there is. Well, that's Joe O'Donnell there.
You got me?
I think we got you back. Let's try one more time.
Yeah. I haven't heard of any issues as far as, the San Jose area. Obviously, we're further north of that. What I was kind of surprised at is that the Iowa Wild played in Ontario last night, which is not too far from L.A. So, but I guess they got, their game in, and that Samuel Halabai pitched a shutout, which is great to see the first of his AHL career. But, yeah, certainly a scary situation in Southern California, and it's affecting a lot of people, obviously.
Let's start with this, and then we'll bring Pat into the conversation. Let me just start with the injury situation. Russo reports that 3 of the main guys did not travel in Jared Spurgeon, of course, Brock Faber, Jonas Brodin, Kirill Kaprizov. None of them expected tonight. Any word on Jakub Lauko? I guess that's the only other guy that's hanging out there as a potential return.
Yeah, I didn't see him on the flight yesterday. I don't think he's on this trip from what I've gathered. Kevin, with all these injuries, the one thing that I'm hoping that this is like, I'm trying to take the optimistic side if there is one, that the Wild are just playing it safe, right? They're playing the long game here with all these guys, giving them as much time as they can. And when you win, 6 of 7 after that skid, they kind of bought themselves some real estate. I feel like they bought themselves another week or two where if they do hit a bit of a funk, if they're unable to have a lot of success on this trip, it would still be okay, right? They built themselves up such a nice cushion over the non-playoff field that if they need to give Spurgeon and Kaprizov and Brodin and Faber proper time, right? Imagine if the Wild were a few points out of a playoff spot and all these guys were hurt. The panic button be pushed. It'd be, we got to rush them back. We got to get everybody back in the lineup. We can't afford a skid. I feel like they're trying to play the long game here. It's just my opinion. I think they're being very cautious and safe, trying to get these guys healthy, and hopefully it pays off.
Hey Joe, you've called games, in every league possible, right? In your budding career, and I've played a few minor league games in my career. So we have seen what can happen, in the minor leagues, right? Where, call-ups, injuries, and all of a sudden you're down to, just enough to get a lineup out there. Have you ever seen anything like this in the National Hockey League before?
I don't think so. I mean, it's weird because you're always looking at house, right? You're always thinking about your situation. And then the Avalanche come in the other night, and they've already used 39 players this year, the most in the league.
Wow.
So, that's 2 hockey teams they've already put on the ice in one half of the season. So, again, you can't change what you really can't control, and that's the injury situation. So the Wild just have to gut their way through it. The one good thing is, I thought they gave themselves a chance to win the other night for most of their hockey game. I didn't think Gustafsson was his best. I don't think that's a shocking statement. They just have to find a way to keep playing the team game, keep staying structured. They can't gift goals, as John Hines said the other night in Colorado, which they unfortunately did. And I think this team on the road feels very confident.
Joe, we use terms like culture, buy-in, everyone pulling on the roll, whatever, right? But this team, through all its adversities, and whatever you want to say about them, man, they don't make excuses. They stick together. And, to me, that it all starts at the top with Bill Guerin and filters on down. But it's been amazing what they've done, in my opinion, in these first 42 games.
Yeah, you got to have that buy-in, and leadership too. I think Marcus Foligno, from what I've heard, is obviously stepping up in that role, right, in Jared Spurgeon. And that's, again, not a shocker at all, right? You'd expect that from one of your alternate captains. But I guess in St. Louis, in between periods and on the bench, he was extremely vocal and setting the right message, and you need that. So you got to get good goaltending. Special teams can't kill you, and you've got to, again, play a team game and try to limit your mistakes when your lineup's not at full capacity. You're probably not going to outscore many teams right now, especially without the puck-moving ability of 3 defensemen like Faber, Spurgeon, and Brodin. So you're going to have to try and grind out some ugly wins on the road, but the Wild have done that to a T this year. 15-3-3 on the road, one of the best marks in the NHL. We'll see if they can get it done today. Sharks played last night in Utah. So,
That's the voice of Joe O'Donnell out there sporadically in San Jose. You're cutting in and out on us a little bit, Joe. We'll give it one more shot here, and we might have to cut bait. I know that they're without their 3 top defensemen, but what can you say about the rest of the group and what they've been able to cobble together? Namely, I've been impressed with John Merrill. I've been really impressed with Zach Bogosian, and, of course, Jake Middleton is a treat to watch every night.
Yeah, those guys are just eating a lot of minutes right now. They have to. So, every situation.
All right. I think we're going to say goodbye to Joe O'Donnell at this point. The connection just isn't good enough, and our listeners deserve better.
We get what he's saying, though, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that, you've got 3 guys that, literally, when you think about it, with Merrill, Bogosian, and who's the third, and Middleton. Well, Middleton's he's a top 4, but the other 2 play, in the 5, 6, 7 role, and all of a sudden have to play a lot of minutes. That's asking a lot of those guys, and relatively speaking, they've been playing really, really well.
It's funny because there was a time this season where I think in the offseason there was a thought that maybe Bogosian could be the odd man out. Maybe he could be the 7th option at the most, maybe the 6th guy on the depth chart. He was playing top pair minutes last game because of their situation. If that doesn't tell you the dire straits that they're in right now.
And that's a good lesson to learn for young kids out there. You may be on the 4th line today. You may be an extra skater today. You may be the 8th defenseman today. But all that can change in one game, and or 2 games or whatever. So you just got to stick with it, stay ready, and obviously these guys have. And but you just never know when it's going to be your turn to to be one of the guys, and these guys have stepped up and played very well.
What do you make of the rest of the Central Division? We've already spent a lot of time on the Colorado Avalanche, but we know the Winnipeg Jets, first place in the Central now by 3 points over the Wild. They've kind of stubbed their toe off and on here lately, but of course they're led by Connor Hellebuck. They're going to be a monster probably for the rest of the year. But I'm looking at those Dallas Stars, Pat. They've won 6 in a row all of a sudden, and they're knocking on the door to climb into the top 3. Well, they're in the top 3, but they're breathing hard down the neck of both the Wild and the Jets.
Yeah, they stumbled a little bit, but seemed to have righted the ship. But that's what happens during an 82-game season. You're going to hit a patch where you might not be as good as you really are, and then you have to try to regain it. It looks like they have. Will they stumble again at the end of the season? I mean, we'll see. But they've got a very solid core and a very solid goaltender, and to me, you look at Winnipeg, right? Why is Winnipeg there? Yeah, they're a good team. They're not a great team, but they're an awfully good team. But they might have the MVP in the league in Connor Hellebuck right now, right? I mean, he's playing as well, or maybe the best in the league. And the same goes with Dallas and Ottinger for them. So your goaltending is going to be key down the stretch. I don't know what's going on in Nashville, but I saw the game against the Wild here, and they looked out of sorts.
I don't get it either. It doesn't make any sense.
Very, very different, and so I don't see much out of them. I like Utah, but Utah is way too young yet. I think what they're building there is going to be really good. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to make the playoffs. But
what about this one, Patrick? When we talk about the Central Division, are you ready to write off the St. Louis Blues at this point?
I'm
right now. They're 2 points out of the second wild card spot, one back of Calgary. Vancouver currently holds the second wild card spot, just 2 points in front of the Blues.
Well, I think they made a great move in getting Jim Montgomery. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league, and he's proven that. I think 49 losses in the 2 seasons that he had with the Bruins. So I think that gave them a boost. I just don't know, Kevin, if they have enough offensively to challenge with the rest of the league. I'm kind of just up in the air a little bit about them. I'm not real sure. I'm not real confident that they're a team that's going to have enough to make the playoffs. And I don't think Bennington is the same goaltender that he was. Obviously the year they won the Cup, where he was great. I think he's just been okay. And so for those reasons, I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs.
How about in the Pacific Division? Most of the season, it's been all about the Winnipeg Jets in the Western Conference, but now the Wild are going to see a team that has definitely found themselves coming into this second half in the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 1 in the Pacific Division. I don't think many people thought that they'd be in the top 3 in the Pacific Division. Here they are leading, tied with the Jets for the most points in the Western Conference. What are the Wild going to be up against Sunday at T-Mobile Arena against that juggernaut?
An awfully tough opponent, an opponent that I think I would favor to win the Stanley Cup. I like the mixture of their team. They're awfully big and heavy, yet they have the skill and guys like our producer Jack Eichel, and so and Stone, and I think they're strong offensively. They're strong defensively. They're big and strong, and they win those board battles. And you know what? They've got a pretty good D-core, which is big and tough. And so right now, to me, they're the favorite, but we have a long way to go. How
about in the Eastern Conference? The Wild have got to see a number of those teams here throughout the course of the first half of the season. They went into Florida, beat the Panthers, went into Tampa, beat the Lightning, shut out the Carolina Hurricanes, took out Ovechkin and the Caps there in D.C. last week as well in the battle between Ovechkin and Marc-Andre Fleury. Who's the team to beat out East?
Well, I still think the team to beat out East is the Florida Panthers. Now, they've played a lot of hockey in the last 2 years, going to 2 Stanley Cups in a row and eventually winning last year. So how are they going to be, fatigue-wise? Are they going to have enough in the tank? Yes, they lose some guys and bring some other guys in for this year's team, but their core is still there. They still know how to win. They know how to play playoff hockey. They've got one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League in Bobrovsky. So I think they're the best in the East. If there was one team that I'm going to pick that is under the radar, it's the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, they're so good.
Listen, they're shocking everybody.
Yeah.
No one thought that they were going to have the team that they have, and everyone who thought Dubois was finished as a player, he's having his best year.
Yeah, he's been rejuvenated.
And what a steal that was from the LA Kings in the trade they made. So, they're a team that I don't think anyone wants to play in the first round. And, they have a chance to make a run.
Capitals have been one of the great stories, along with the Minnesota Wild, from the first half of the first half of the season. On the other end of that, Joe Micheletti's New York Rangers have been abysmal. I look at where they are in the standings, Patrick, and maybe they're starting to claw their way back, but regardless, I mean, they're 4 points out of they trail Columbus at this point. And we know what a tragic start to the season it has been for Columbus and how they got back on track and they're doing this in memory of Johnny Hockey and all that for sure. That it's just such a great story to hear how they're rallying around that team. But the New York Rangers, Patrick, no one would have predicted they'd be three. They're sitting there with the Sabres, the Flyers, and the Islanders at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. No one could have predicted that.
Well, probably 15, 20 minutes ago. It all starts at the top and filters down. Their culture is bad. They pretty much have the same team that they had a year ago, minus the 2 guys that were handled just horrifically in Jacob Trouba and Barclay Goodrow. How they handled that situation was terrible. And to me, it affected the team and affected the way their attitudes are. And, they're taking that attitude and they're bringing it to the ice. And you're seeing what's happened on the ice. Not very good. Yes, they have some games that they seem to care. But, no, I think they're done for the season. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. And I think we're going to see sweeping changes in that organization next year.
Unbelievable. Who would have thunk, considering the great season they put out on the ice last year, to see it all unravel this quickly is a sight to behold. Patrick, I'm going to put you on hold when we continue. We've got we've talked a lot of National Hockey League thus far. We've even talked some college hockey. When we continue, we're going to go on to the youth stage, and we're going to talk to Tony Scott of Youth Hockey Hub. I think a lot of you probably know that name and know that website. I'm hoping this will be a weekly segment that we can get into the brain of Tony Scott and to his knowledge and what's going on around the state, because it is the state of hockey, and there's nothing better than this time of year when we talk about youth hockey in this area. So we'll talk to Tony Scott when we continue. Keep those talkbacks coming. I still got to give away another pair of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers Wednesday in St. Paul. That'll go out to a random talkback. Keep those guesses coming in at 64686, giving away a pair of tickets to see the Wild and Oilers. If you want tickets, you can get them. Wild.com/tickets.
This is Wild head coach John Hines, and you're listening to Beyond the Pond with Fallness and Micheletti on KFAN.
5 hours. Presented by Hy-Vee.
Hi, this is Aaron in Mankato. I'm just wondering, what do we need to have our Stanley Cup hopes to come to tuition? Do we need a ruckus guy to protect all our players? What kind of trade do we need to do here before the deadline?
A good question. Fruition is the word you were looking for, and that's fine. What do you think, Patrick? The one thing that this team needs more than anything when we talk about the Minnesota Wild is health. I think beyond anything and everything, you got to get healthy, and that includes especially Kirill Kaprizov. And let's get at least 2 of those top 4 defensemen back on the ice at the exact same time. That would be a good start.
100%, Kevin. You can't really, say, well, we need this, we need that, we need the other thing if you don't have a healthy team. First off, get healthy, and then as you get closer to the deadline, listen, these general managers talk to each other every day, whatever, and so if something makes sense for Bill Guerin that he thinks will help this team, there's no question in my mind that he would do something. But until you get closer to the playoffs, until you get healthy, you just got to wait and hopefully get through this time frame.
Let's go to our youth hockey spotlight correspondent at youthhockeyhub.com. His name is Tony Scott. Tony, that's Pat Micheletti. I'm Kevin Fallness. Hey, welcome to Beyond the Pond.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Before we get to some of your bullet points and some of the things that are going on around the state, like I said, we're talking to the heart of your audience. But for those that don't know, youthhockeyhub.com, what are they going to find there and on your Twitter at youthhockeyhub?
I think we cover everything in the whole state of Minnesota, whether it's squirts, peewees, mites, bantams, high school, boys, girls, you name it. We're out and about. We have 20 different photographers and reporters all over. For example, we were at the Rosa World game this past week in World on Tuesday night, and we'll be in Cloquet today for Cloquet Hockey Day. We're kind of all over the place, all over the state covering hockey. You name it, we got it.
What's your background, Tony?
Well, Tony, it's it's amazing what you guys do for the state of hockey, and it I know everybody uses it, everybody gets your information, and that's so vital in keeping our great sport what it is.
Well, I really appreciate that, Pat, coming from one of the state's greatest players.
What's your background, Tony?
I started in marketing communications and noticed a huge hole in hockey coverage when my son got about to squirt age, and then put up a website. And then at the end of the first year, someone said, you should put on a tournament, and that tournament became the YHA Squirtacular. And the first ever MVP of the YHA Squirtacular in 2012, drum roll please, Brock Faber.
How about that?
Wow. Pretty much history.
So you've watched him from the ground up, and now he's clearly, obviously, and he was even before he jumped on the for the Wild radar, but he's been Pat Micheletti's favorite player for quite some time. You're not surprised at how he's risen through the ranks?
No, not at all. He played on a line with Justin Janicki, who's at Notre Dame, and Kyle Kukkonen, who's at Wisconsin, and those guys just basically toyed with teams their entire youth career.
Tell me about your Friday night ice production. I know you guys were on the air last night. Well, what does that entail, and who did you cover last night?
Well, Friday Night Ice was developed because we wanted to put on a game, with pregame stories, a little bit of hype around it, do a 30-minute pregame show before a game, and then have multiple cameras for the game, in-game interviews with the coaches, all that kind of stuff. Just kind of an experience for everybody. And last night we did a Pee Wee game. We've never done a youth game before. It's usually high school. And so it was Andover and Blaine, backyard brawl. These two teams, it's a war when those two teams get together. And it was last night. Blaine got out to a 3-1 lead, and Andover roared back and won 6-3. Luke Talbot had 2 goals, 2 assists. They had a blast with the whole thing. They loved it. It wasn't just a regular district game. We made a fun game out of it. That's for sure.
Hey, Tony, I've never ever heard the term backyard brawl for a Pee Wee game.
A Pee Wee game.
that is awesome.
That's fun.
It was. You should have seen. There's no checking in Pee Wee hockey. There was a lot of checking last night. I'll just say that.
Tremendous stuff. What else is going on around the state? Let's go on the girls' stage. Minnetonka against Edina. Was that last night?
Yeah, it was last night. Minnetonka wins 2-0. Gopher commit Layla had a 26 save shutout. They won. Hats off to both booster clubs for Minnetonka and Edina. They got free admission. They got a sponsor to pay for everyone to go in the game. 2,100 fans at Braemar last night. Hats off to both of those teams for putting that on. I bet that was a really special occasion.
Awesome. What do you got coming up today? Give us some of the highlights around the state on the boys' stage for a busy Saturday, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, so girls were on the stage last night. 3 top 10 games in girls hockey. Today, the boys take the stage, I think. Warroad hosts Hermantown in Hockeytown today. That game's a truth and reconciliation game with pregame powwow and ceremony up there in Warroad. Jefferson and Kennedy play their last game ever tonight at Bloomington Ice Garden. And then number 3 STA visits Edina tonight at Braemar. Those 2 teams played in our tournament down in Prior Lake last week, and STA beat Edina, and they were the number 1 team in the state. And I think they're the number 2 team in the state because they just beat Hill Murray on Tuesday night.
Awesome. Well, I haven't even told Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
No, I don't want to change subjects, but to a certain degree, Tony, I'd like your thoughts. You know, around the Christmas time, we have so many youth hockey tournaments, high school hockey tournaments, you know, on both sides, the boys and girls. That being said, do you think that will have any impact on people attending the World Junior Tournament that will be here over Christmas next year?
That is a great question because we put on last week, we had a 12-day stretch where we had 9 straight days of running at events, high school, girls, and a youth boys tournament. And I thought about that, Pat. I think about it all the time. I'm like, how are we going to do this as a state, just us, YHH, because we're going to get credentialed to be there. But how do we cover all of this World Junior stuff and then still do all of the youth stuff? We're going to have to double our staff next year in that 15 to 20-day span. I agree. I don't know how we're going to do it. And the tickets are not cheap for the average ticket buyer to get into the World Juniors, too.
Again, we're talking to Tony Scott, Youth Hockey Hub. You can find him online, youthhockeyhub.com. Next week, I noticed your Friday night ice next week is going to be in a town that Pat Micheletti knows a little something about. Pat doesn't even know this, but next week, my boys got a tournament up there in Hibbing, and I'm going to be on location. Yeah, so my Bantams are going to be up there. We're going to spend the weekend. We're actually staying in Eveleth and might do Beyond the Pond next week from the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. Still working on all the details on that. But it sounds like Friday night there's a big one coming up there featuring his Blue Jackets.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in Hibbing. Obviously, if Kevin Fallness is going to be in Hibbing. So Hibbing will host Hermantown. The school plans to honor the 1985 team, the 40-year anniversary of that 1985 team. I've done some research on this team, and they got a couple D1 guys, Tom Hansen and John Hyde, who both played for Mike Surdich at UMD. But, Pat, what do you know about those 85 guys? They're a couple years younger than you. What did you know about those guys?
Well, you know, obviously John went on and Tom to UMD, and I played against both of them. And, you know, listen, we went to the tourney in '82, and that kind of started Hibbing getting right back to where they were. There was more involvement in the youth hockey, and, you know, people got the, you know, that feel for winning again. And you know, they carried that on and had a great team.
Great.
Yeah, they had a really good team. They won the Consolation Championship in triple overtime. I'm excited to meet those guys. There's going to be a 10-minute ceremony prior to the Friday Night Ice puck drop, and we're going to have a great hockey game up there. Hermantown's number 2 in the state. Hibbing's number 4 in the state. Hermantown has been to the state tournament 14 out of the last 15 years. So we're writing a story about their domination and what it took to build a great hockey program in Hermantown. I
look forward to being in the area, and I look forward to these weekly conversations, Tony. If you're up for it, this is Pat's got the college scene covered. I've followed the NHL, and to have someone that's boots on the ground there on the youth hockey scene, it'd be great to have you for a weekly contribution if you're up for it.
We would love to be a part of it.
Awesome.
Sure.
Tony, enjoy your night. We'll talk to you next week. It sounds like from Hibbing.
Yeah, we'll see you in Hibbing.
There we go.
Good talk to you.
Thanks, Tony.
You bet. Tony Scott, Youth Hockey Hub, youthhockeyhub.com, on Twitter at Youth Hockey Hub. Patrick, like I said, you know the name, you know the website. They've got it all covered there, especially on the youth stage. Not only just high school, but like he's talking about, they featured a Pee Wee game last night.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And what does that tell you, Kevin? Their passion for the game and passion for, letting people know, about the state of hockey from mites up to the high schools, and what their work is phenomenal, and it's great.
You got 10 more minutes in you, or do you got to scamper off to the rink?
You know what? I think I'm going to let you and Brett handle the rest. I have to start getting ready for the game, and
the game that's like 8 hours away. But I get it. Puck drop at 5:30. Pregame starts.
Kevin, I got to get mentally prepared and focused and ready to be the best that I can be, which is hard enough, as you know. So
yeah, I hope the team that you're covering is a little better than last night. As mentioned at the start of the show, they lost 5-1 to the Buckeyes. They're in Columbus. What are you expecting tonight in the rematch? Again, you and Wally hit the air starting at 5 o'clock, puck drops just after 5:30.
Well, I think the message will be ready from the start of the game. And, they bounce back pretty good typically. And so I expect them to be better tonight, but Ohio State also understands that. So I think it's going to be a heck of a game, and, we'll see.
How is old Wally? Haven't talked to Wally in a while. We exchange text messages every now and again. How's he doing?
Well, Wally says to say hello to you, and he misses you. How's that?
Yeah, that's great. I'll tell you this much, too, since I'm saying goodbye to you, and we only talked about the Gophers. We didn't really talk about the rest of the teams.
Right.
One that I want to bring up is Arizona State. They took care of North Dakota last night. I actually watched a little bit of that game because I couldn't find anything else to watch late at night, and their slogan is "Fear the Fork." One of the best slogans I've ever heard, but they're riding a nice little heater there in Arizona State.
You know what? For their first year in the league in the NCHC, which is a heck of a league, and they beat one of the top teams in the country in North Dakota, and right now they sit in second place in the NCHC and position themselves very well for the second half of the year and their playoffs. They obviously want to get home ice in the first round, and what a story. They go from a club team to a Division I team and now second place in their league. So, good for them. And we want to keep growing the game everywhere, and to have Arizona State have the program that they have certainly helps.
From a local angle here in Minnesota, you got Minnesota Duluth hosting St. Cloud State. The Bulldogs blank the Huskies. Yeah, last night at Amsoil, 2-rip was the final. They'll have the rematch coming up this evening at 6:07 again on the shores of Lake Superior. What grabs you? That kind of surprises me.
Kevin, there were a lot of, along with the Minnesota loss last night, Boston College loses to Merrimack, which kind of surprised a lot of people. Northern Michigan, the doormat of the CCHA right now, played Minnesota State tough about a month ago, and this time they had them at home, and they beat Minnesota State to break their 11-game winning streak. So a lot of upsets, if you would want to call them that, in college hockey last night.
How about your Tommies, by the way? Did you see what they did to Ferris State?
Yeah, defense was not part of the equation for either team.
The two teams combined for 15 goals. The Tommies get a 9-6 victory over Ferris State. Wow.
Yeah, in a win, it was a home game, and, the Tommies have not played well, and they really needed a win, and they got it last night.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, go get ready. Go do your hair, whatever. You're on the radio. I don't know. You don't have to put on a wardrobe. You don't have to make
up. Ready, Kevin. Come on.
All right, well, go get them, Patrick.
It takes a while for me to get ready, Kevin.
I know it. Hopefully, when we talk next week, hopefully I'll be at the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
Again?
I don't think so. I'm going to be on the road with my boy. But that'll be fun. Don't you think that'd be cool if we can get it from the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame? I've never been there.
I think it would be fantastic. And,
all right.
You'll feel very nostalgic being in that building.
Yeah, I'm working on it. That'll be cool. And I'm sure we'll have some Hibbing-related guests next weekend as well, especially if I'm in the area. So I look forward to it, Patrick. Have a great call.
Yep, thanks. Take care.
That, of course, Pat Micheletti. He's got to get out 17 minutes early. Are you kidding me? He can't. That broadcast isn't going to wait for him. Yeah, it's not till 5 o'clock tonight, but he needs these 17 minutes back in his life to get ready for the broadcast, Brett.
When you opened the show and you said, Pat, welcome to your own show,
yeah,
I think that says it all.
Yeah, I mean, now he's got a valid excuse. Before, he was running around the country chasing a dollar at all these different locations, and again, he could have managed his schedule a little differently. Now, of course, he's with the Gopher Radio Network on the road. At home, he's in front of the television cameras with Jim Rich on Fox 9 and Fox 9 Plus, so we'll give him a break. But really, what does this extra 16 minutes do to help in your prep to get ready for tonight's contest? That would be my question to one Pat Micheletti that he won't answer.
And now you're stuck with me.
And now you are also stuck with me, and so too are the listeners. Keep those talkbacks coming. We're going to get to a couple of more of those on the other side of break. We got one little segment left to get to, and then we'll get those tickets out the door. You can also keep guessing 64686 and open topics. We can talk about anything you want to on the other side of break on Beyond the Pond.
This is Wild GM Bill Guerin, and you're listening to Fallness and Micheletti on Beyond the Pond on KFAN.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you guys think there's a club whose fans are more deserving of the Stanley Cup than the Minnesota Wild. I mean, you got the burden, those two huge contracts. You got the Blackhawks smacking them out of the playoffs every year. It's just insanity. Nobody told them they didn't have to be a disappointment like the other Minnesota teams.
Who do you think the most likely free agent next summer is that Philly's going to target? Besser, Reinhardt, defenseman, etc.?
Good talkbacks rolling in, and they have been all morning. It's fun to speculate about what's going to happen next summer, or as Brett Blakemore likes to do, think about 3 years down the road what the depth chart will look like for the third pair on the blue line. But
Yurov's right around the corner.
I'm excited for that kid, too. Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff bubbling here for the Wild. Steve Bouillon is probably the top of the list. But Yurov, too, when he ever gets the opportunity to come here to North America and play for this team. But the here and now, the Wild, they've put together a pretty fun first half of the season. Thursday was not so much fun, and there's been probably 4 games that I can think of. 3 of them, unfortunately, have come on home ice where the Wild have got their doors blown off by the Panthers, by the Oilers was bad. I think last Thursday's game was probably the worst of all of them. That one, the connection that I would make with that Oilers one was that's the one where Jake Middleton got injured right at the start of the game, took a Evan Bouchard slap shot right on his hand. That's what set him out of the lineup, and I think that discombobulated that entire game because I believe Brodin was missing from the end, Jules Eriksson. Again, the injury situation comes to play, and the Wild didn't have the horses to run with the Oilers on that night. Happened to them against the Avalanche on Thursday as well. You're without your 3 top defensemen. Not just 3 defensemen, you're without your top 3 defensemen are out of the lineup, plus you're missing Kirill Kaprizov. They just didn't have the horses to deal with it.
Is it just me, or does this, I mean, should we be surprised by this injury crisis at this point? I feel like this happens every year. Am I crazy?
It does feel like injuries happen every year, but not to this extent. I was thinking about that, too. Last year, certainly they went through the injury bug. But the way it's taken a swath through not only their lineup, but significant players, and go down the list. I mean, the most odd of all of them was the Zuccarello one, where he's just, providing a screen, and he ends up taking a Brock Faber slap shot to the worst possible area on earth. That's one example. Jules Eriksson in and out of the lineup. Jonas Brodin now with it sounds like he blocked a shot. Brock Faber, of all people, Mr. Reliable.
Puck to the throat.
Took a puck to the throat and then apparently got an elbow to the head there against the Blues. It's been a crazy first half of the season. One thing I wanted to start doing was our 3 stars each week for Beyond the Pond. Do you want to go first or you want me to?
I'll go first.
Okay.
My star of the week is Zeev.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a star-making performance in the World Juniors, assisting on the game winner, gold medal. What more can you ask of? I expect him to make a Brock Faber jump towards the end of the year and be up here.
Yeah, and I should have done a better job of explaining the 3 stars of the
week. Does it have to be Wild related?
No, it doesn't. No, and that's what I'm explaining to the listener. It can be anything in the world of hockey. I'll give one, you give one, and Pat, when he doesn't have to rush off to his glitzy radio job, we'd each give one, and it can be on any level. You say Zeev Buium, Wild prospect, and of course did some great things there for Team USA. I'm picking Marc-Andre Fleury for what he did over the course of the last week and change. The showdown with Alex Ovechkin was awesome drama in our nation's capital a week ago, Thursday, whatever that game was, and then what he did in helping survive the St. Louis Blues on another night where the Wild didn't have their best stuff. He did. He had another windmill-type save, and it was a fun night for him. So that's my 3... Our 2/3 of the 3 stars will have to get Micheletti's next week. I'm not going to tell you who I talked to. Whoever it was, hopefully we'll get him on next week. I've had now 3 or 4 people guess who it is. And so you've nailed it. There's also been some great guesses. I saw Pierre-Marc Bouchard. I've talked to him many times since he left. Brian Ralston, we've had him on the air. Those are a couple of the guys. I saw Marty Havlik guess. That's not the right answer. Eric Belanger. We might have to get him on the horn.
What position?
I can't give it away.
Oh, come on.
Nope. It's from about 15 years ago, and I hope to have him on regardless. Who are you picking on Monday? You picking the Rams or you picking the Vikings?
I think the Vikings can pull it off. I think it's going to be a nail-biter, last possession type game.
I think you're right. Hey, we're back on the air tonight at 8:45, Wild and Sharks, right here on
the Fan. For an extraordinary advantage in sports, you need a game plan. For an extraordinary advantage everywhere else, all you need is Acrisure. With a high-tech human approach to insurance, cybersecurity, and more, Acrisure helps you take care of what you care about. That makes winning easy. See what Acrisure's extraordinary advantage can do for you at Acrisure.com.